Today, I'm going to be talking about something that determines more about the growth of a dental group than marketing, scheduling, hiring, or leadership combined. The production engine stack. This is a stack that skilled DSOs have engineered, and this is a stack that determines more about your dental group ceiling every single month than any other metric combined. A lot of dental group owners think that they have a performance issue when they actually have, or a marketing issue when they actually have a capacity and a flow issue. Your production per operator per day is the metric that determines your ceiling every single month. This is what happens when your case flow, case mix, your EBITDA, your throughput, it's all aligned. This is not a metric that you report. This is a metric that you operate with. Let's start with something that determines your ceiling every single month, your capacity engine. Many dental CEOs think that they have a performance issue when they actually have a capacity problem. Capacity is the ceiling that is defined or determines how high you can go. Because a lot of dental group owners are already flying under it without knowing how high they can fly. Most dental CEOs think that growth comes from better marketing, better patients, more patients, better providers, better scheduling, better systems. While all of that is operationally true, the only formula that matters is that your capacity, your growth grows at the speed of your capacity, not at the speed of your effort. Think of it like this. Growth comes from how many chairs you have, how many doctors do you have that can produce, how many hours do you have, what is your throughput like, how does that impact your EBITDA? So instead of tracking or optimizing this formula, what most dental CEOs do is that they track collections, they track production, they track new patient acquisition, when the only metric that they should be tracking is the number of productive chair hours that they have. Because this is the entire business model. This is what private equity firms evaluate when they're evaluating any dental group for acquisition. This is what increases your valuation. And this is what you should be optimizing for. Let me explain what I mean. Your chairs are your financial assets. They're not just a piece of furniture. Your chairs are your revenue lanes. They're your production units. They determine what is going to be your theoretical output every month. Your EBITDA ceiling was determined the day you decided how many operatories you were going to build. Next is your doctors. They determine your clinical throughput. Revenue lanes without drivers are stuck, and drivers are useless without revenue lanes. That is why most elite dental CEOs measure not just headcount, they measure capacity, they measure coverage. Doctors determine how fast your lanes can go, how many lanes can simultaneously run, and they also determine how smoothly dentistry will flow through the day. Hours are where most DSOs bleed. Same chairs, same doctors, but mismatched schedules, 3.5 hour days, hygiene collapses, idle dead zones. These are what destroy real capacity. Hours determine whether your business gains or loses 15 to 35% of its power. Hours are what align your doctors and your chairs into either a healthy throughput or a wasted potential. Throughput is where it all comes together, the entire chain. It's not your business. It's not how hectic the schedule looks for your team. It's not how packed your calendar is. Throughput is actually how much real dentistry were you able to push through your productive share hours. This is where your practice comes alive, and this is where PPOD becomes the real metric in truth telling. You will be shocked at how many dental CEOs say that we don't have a capacity problem, we have a production problem. And that may sound logical because when you have 8 operatories and you see patients everywhere, this is how you tend to think, right? But the truth is that 8 operatories only means 8 potential production lanes. It does not mean that you have 8 production lanes. You don't scale on chairs, you scale on the number of chair hours. And this is where a lot of dental CEOs fail to understand that capacity is not the number of rooms you have. Capacity is how much dentistry is actually happening inside of those rooms. And a lot of dental groups are nowhere close to the benchmarks. Let me show you how your PPOD is what exposes the truth for many dental group owners. Your production per operatory per day is the only truth-telling metric for your business growth. Here's how to look at it. Say you have 8 chairs and you have 9 hour days, which means that you can do dentistry for around 72 hours, and that is your capacity. But you should be asking yourself how many of those hours are going into actual dentistry and how many of those hours are converting into actual production. For many dental groups, they're losing 20 to 24 hours per day. They're only doing productive dentistry for 48 to 52 of those hours. which means that 1/3 of their capacity is going to waste. That is the capacity that is not tracked, not built, not even noticed. And while you're losing those hours, your fixed costs keep on rising. You're paying your insurance, your payroll, you're servicing your debt, you're paying your rent, which is why your PPOD is the only truth telling metric. Your schedule can lie to you, but your PPOD will never lie to you. Now we need to understand two concepts very clearly: capacity and production. Capacity is how many chairs you have, production is what is filling those chairs. Think of it like this: capacity in an airplane may mean the number of seats in an airplane. Production means how many passengers and in which class are they boarding the airplane. Many times, dental group owners think that their problem is filling those chairs. What they don't realize is that what fills those chairs drastically impacts your production per operatory per day. Same chairs, same hours may mean anywhere around $180 for hygiene visits, $300 for fillings, $500 to $700 for crown work, $3,000 to $7,000 for implant case starts. Same chairs, same hours, but what fills dentistry can impact your production per operatory per day in multiples of 10. It's not about how the chairs are filled. It's about what fills the chairs. One belief that a lot of dental owners have is that they think that their team is busy, they must be doing well. Well, busyness is an emotion. Your PPOD or throughput is the real truth. You may be feeling busy. Everybody is rushed. Your phones are ringing nonstop. Your hygiene is busy. Your doctor is rushing between rooms. Yet you could still be losing 20 to 25% in unused capacity. Because busyness does not tell you whether your chairs were staggered, whether high value cases fell in low value hours, whether two operatories sat idle while everyone felt rushed, whether hygiene collapsed after lunch, whether cancellations were recovered, whether doctor coverage aligned with demand. Your team can feel like sprinting while your PPOD is crawling. So where most DSOs unintentionally bleed is that if the providers are not staggered. What that means is that everyone's coming in at 8, everyone's taking lunch at 1, everyone is in hygiene checks at the same time, everyone is opening or closing at the same time. What happens is that all the checks pile up at once. Everyone feels rushed at the same time. Assistants get overwhelmed in waves. All high value cases get squeezed in at the same time slot. Bottlenecks appear at peak hours. Entire operatories sit empty at non-peak hours. Hygiene collapses in the middle of the day. Staggering providers is not about working more hours. It's about distributing your capacity intelligently. Elite DSOs avoid this. Other things where DSOs quietly bleed are hygiene columns collapsing at the same time. Peak demand hours are understaffed. 3 and 3.5 hour day doctor schedules destroying continuity. No operational blueprint for chair hour allocation. Idle chair hours are not tracked at all. These are not dramatic failures. They're micro cracks that compound into millions in lost EBITDA. Another thing that a lot of CEOs believe is that when the production plateaus or it stalls, they think that they need better training, better people, more marketing. What they don't realize is that the doctors can only produce within the limits of your rooms, your chairs, your walls. This is not a talent issue, it's a capacity issue. They cannot produce beyond the infrastructure that is set to support their production, that is set to support the productive hours that are required or demanded by the dental group. This is where elite dental groups are bigger, faster, better, even if they're not clinically better. They design chair hours like a manufacturing plant. They engineer providers staggering. They treat every operatory as a revenue lane. They measure PPOD daily, not at the end of the month. They eliminate idle hours with surgical precision. They staff to demand, not habit. They protect hygiene flow like an asset. They're not guessing, they're engineering. It is not an outcome of marketing. It's an outcome of engineered capacity. Your EBITDA is not determined by your marketing plan, your team's effort, or your clinical skills. Your EBITDA is determined by how many operatories you have, how many hours you staffed, whether your provider is staggered, whether hygiene flowed through the day, whether case value matched chair time. Here's the simple truth. When you don't control capacity, the capacity controls you. Let me show you some numbers that private equity firms value. Elite DSOs do anywhere around 85 to 92% of chair utilization. Strong PPOD is when you have $40 to $55 per hour operatory per day. When you have idle hours above 15%, your EBITDA drops by 10 to 18%. One collapsed hygiene column can lead to $800 to $2,400 in lost PPOD. One additional doctor day per week, if it's properly staggered, is anywhere around 8 to 12% increase in PPOD. These are not guesses, these are operational benchmarks. Now that we've defined your ceiling or your capacity engine, the next question is how close are you getting to it? Your capacity engine defines your altitude. Your scheduling and flow engine determines how you reach it. This is where DSOs are quietly bleeding 20 to 30% of your PPOD without even noticing it. Capacity sets the altitude. Your flow or your scheduling determines how you reach it. Let's dive into it. Now that we've talked about capacity, let's talk about something that's far more subtle and far more dangerous. That is the scheduling and flow engine. Because once the hours are available, once the chairs are in place, once the doctors are in the building, the next logical question becomes, how well does dentistry flow in those hours? And many times dental group owners believe that nothing looks wrong. They feel that the calendars are packed, the phones are ringing, and the people are moving. But when the numbers come in, they don't align so well. They don't look so good. The biggest misconception in dentistry is that packed schedule means a good productive day. A packed schedule only means a busy calendar. Production comes from having appointments that are properly scheduled, routed, and supported. You can have 10 columns filled with appointments, but if none of them turn into actual dentistry, you're losing hundreds of thousands of unused PPOD every single day. Not because your team is not working hard, but because the flow is not engineered. Flow does not come from having more appointments. Flow comes from having the right patients in the right chairs at the right times, with the right providers, with the right clinical rhythm to support them. A properly engineered flow means a smooth, productive day and a happy team, an empowered team. When the flow is not engineered properly, it's all chaotic, and the numbers also don't look so good. Let's talk about something that's at the heart of scheduling, that is routing. Routing is the difference between having a $2,500 PPOD versus a $4,500 PPOD. Many times, dental CEOs believe that their teams know how to schedule. Well, your teams may know how to schedule, but scheduling is not the same as routing. Routing means which appointments go into which rooms and when do they go there and how do they activate or bottleneck your entire team. Think of it like this. An implant consult sent into hygiene kills the day. Having emergencies sent into unsupported rooms can trigger chaos. Limited exams sent into scheduled with prime doctor hours can completely kill your day and disrupt the entire flow. So routing is not administrative, it's an operational architecture. Now let's talk about density, which is something that can completely change your perspective once you understand how to see it clearly. You can have a very packed schedule that can still be hollow on the inside. And you can also have a very balanced schedule that can lead to a very high production day. For example, if you have high value cases going into low value hours, your production will fall. But if you have your prime hours blocked for high value dentistry, then your production will rise. Density is what determines the two. Density is what turns your time into revenue. Another thing that impacts dental group owners are the no-show rates. Sometimes they say casually that their no-show rates are just 10%, without realizing that those 10% no-shows have a much higher impact on their PPOD. Why? Because no-shows do not land evenly. They land at the wrong time, with the wrong in the wrong chairs, with the providers standing by, with the chairs and the assistants already set up for supporting the treatment. And the impact cascades throughout the day. It disrupts your flow. It impacts your density. It creates idle hours that don't show on your profit and loss statements, yet they completely destroy your PPOD. Now, this is where most elite DSOs differ from average DSOs. They don't depend on luck or heroics to recover from cancellations. They already have systems in place. They have an architecture in place to support recovery automatically. They have real-time wait lists. They have backup patients ready. They have location-to-location routing options. They have recovery windows already designed into the day. So their PPOD, it's not accidental. It stays consistent. One of the biggest unlocks for multi-location dental groups is having strategic hygiene double bookings. Not the chaotic ones, but the strategic, architected, and designed ones. Hygiene is your diagnostic engine. If your hygiene collapses, your same-day dentistry collapses. If your same-day dentistry collapses, your PPOD collapses. So having strategic double hygiene bookings adds more to your revenue without overwhelming your team. It creates a predictable check cadence for the doctors. Your hygiene increases your diagnostic flow. It adds opportunities for same-day dentistry and revenue. If your hygiene collapses, then you are losing opportunities for same-day revenue, and that is why many elite dental groups have added more to their revenue by redesigning their hygiene flow compared to adding to their marketing spend. Here are some benchmarks that may be valuable to you if you're running a scaling DSO or a dental group. High-performing groups run 85 to 92% share utilization, whereas most average groups operate anywhere around 55 to 70% without realizing it. Elite groups lose around less than 10% to cancellations, whereas average groups lose 20 to 30%. Elite schedules have less than 12% day-to-day variance, whereas average DSOs tolerate anywhere around 25 to 45% variance, and they think that it's normal. Here's a misconception a lot of dental group owners have. They feel that their team knows how to schedule. Yes, your team may know how to book an appointment, but having a packed calendar does not mean that you're also productive. Productive day comes from having flow that is engineered. Flow engineering comes from having routing rules in place, having priority utilizations, having a recovery plan for cancellations. A flow that is not engineered affects your PPOD. PPOD increases come from flow that is effective and engineered and structured properly throughout your day. Here is the simplest way to see the impact of flow. 2 offices, same number of chairs, same hours, same providers, same hygiene. They should be producing the same, but they're not. Office A uses 41 of its 54 available chair hours. Office B uses 27. That's a 14-hour difference per day. At even $300 hour potential, that's $4,200 lost daily. The result, Office A sits at $3,800 PPOD, whereas Office B struggles at $2,100 PPOD. Nothing changed except how the day was engineered. When Office B introduced clear routing rules, established a consistent clinical cadence, and protected prime time blocks for high-value cases, their PPOD jumped from $2,100 to $3,400 in just 6 weeks. Same people, same chairs, same hours, same providers, different flow, and a completely different business outcome. Speed matters because when PPOD moves that quickly, it tells you something powerful. Business does not move because of demand. Business moves because of the design. Now that we've talked about capacity and how flow can be engineered in order to make sure that your capacity is efficiently utilized, let's talk about the third layer, which is the case acquisition engine, which is everyone's favorite. This is also commonly known as a marketing engine. This is where many dental groups are bleeding money, and this is also where the biggest upside lives. Marketing is only as effective as the impact it has on your PPOD. So, for example, if you are getting an implant case accepted, that has more impact on your PPOD compared to 20 new patients that are coming in as low-value dentistry. And in this layer, I'm going to be discussing more about how most dental groups are chasing the wrong funnels, tracking the wrong metrics, and bleeding money in doing it. Now that we've talked about capacity, that is what's possible, and also talked about flow engineering, that is how much of that possibility are you capturing, let's talk about case acquisition, that is what kind of dentistry fills those chairs. Because this is where things get real. This is your case acquisition engine, and it's not about running ads or marketing or having more leads. It's about having the right patients at the right time in the right chairs with the right providers. And the simple truth is your EBITDA does not depend on leads. It depends on the case acceptance. Now, here are some of the biggest misconceptions that are associated with case acquisition systems for dental group owners. They think that they just need more leads. Now, this may seem like the logical first step if revenue is your issue, but the data shows that many dental groups don't have a lead problem, they have a leak problem. They're leaking their patient inflow at 3 to 4 different points. They're leaking them at the phone consoles, they're leaking them at the bookings, they're leaking them at the case acceptances, they're leaking them at the case starts. And unless you fix those leakages, the wastage becomes more expensive. Think of it like this. If you have the drain open, you can never be able to fill your bucket or fill your bathtub. If you want to really fill your bathtub, you need to clog the drain and fix the drain. That is the fix. Adding more water is not the fix. Another common belief is that if we only dial up our marketing, our production will follow. Well, marketing can only drive production if your phones are getting picked, if you're following up with the patients, if the patients are showing up to the appointments, if you're presenting the case to them correctly, if they're able to clinically and financially say yes, if you are able to get the cases started. If any step of the entire process breaks, then there's just more noise and the production does not follow. So, in simple terms, operationally aligned marketing drives production. Unaligned marketing does not drive production, it just drives activity and disappointment. Another very common and deeply ingrained belief is that if our new patient volume is growing, then our business is growing. And it may look good on the paper, but that's not what the true story is. If your case acceptance system is not in place, then new patient volume only makes you a very, very busy and a very non profitable practice. High new patient volume can lead to scheduling chaos, retention issues, your PPOD breaks, and it can turn you into it turns you into a terrible valuation story. New patient volume does not drive PPOD. New patient volume plus engineered case acceptance drives PPOD. So when all of those misconceptions fall apart, what do you get? You get the real truth. The truth is that case acquisition does not sit at the top of your funnel. Case acquisition is at the bottom of your funnel, which is where revenue lives. Now, one thing becomes very apparent when you look at data from across dental groups. All cases are not the same. High value implant patients behave very differently compared to general dentistry patients. And these are the patients who don't just stumble upon your service through a generic internet search, or they don't just walk into your office like an emergency or hygiene visit. These are the people who are looking to find a solution to an actual problem. They're looking to find stability, confidence, and improve their appearance, maybe. So they're not just looking for an appointment. They're looking to get clarity. They're looking to build trust. They're looking to get education on what the solutions are. So they usually enter through educational channels such as landing forms, such as landing pages, such as webinars, such as campaigns that are designed to build intent before the appointment. A case acquisition system designed around implants has to go beyond generating a lead and handing it off. It has to be designed around pre-qualification, around correct routing options, around financial readiness, around show rate optimization, around case acceptance and case starts. And when you design the entire system like that, you get better consult acceptance rates. You get better case acceptance rates. You get better show rates. And because implant cases are such high PPOD multipliers in a multi-location dental group, having a well-designed, well-engineered case acquisition system around implant cases just makes PPOD far more predictable. It's not because the marketing worked or your ads worked, but it's because the entire case acquisition system was engineered. And what I mean by a case acquisition system is not a single marketing channel or a funnel. I'm referring to this flow here. That is how your leads are coming in, how your phones are connected, how your consults are booked, how your consults are completed, how many cases are started, how many cases are accepted. And when private equity firms look at dental groups, they're not asking how many leads are you generating. They're looking at this funnel and asking how repeatable is it month to month? How predictable is it? How well does this convert demand into revenue? And how expensive is it to get the cases started? Most DSOs do not realize that they're bleeding money at the middle of the funnel. For example, there may be leakage between leads coming in and phones not getting picked up. Or maybe the consults booked and the consults completed, and maybe the yeses that they're getting versus the cases that are accepted. That is where the biggest losses are usually happening. Let's look at what works and what does not because anyone is incompetent, but just because the industry has been trained to look at the wrong numbers. Number one is that we just need more leads. Well, more leads mean nothing if your show rates are inconsistent, if your case acceptance is not strong, if your phone connection is low. More leads will only lead to more inefficiencies because it's going to add more to your marketing spend. It's going to add more strain to your staff. It's not going to lead to revenue. It's just going to lead to more operational complexity. So it's important that you fix the other aspects of the entire chain before adding more to your marketing spend and generating more demand. Now, another metric is cost per lead. Now, cost per lead is a marketing metric. It's not a platform metric. This may tell you about the efficiency of your marketing funnel, but it does not tell you anything about your business productivity. The real metric to track is cost per booked case. That is a metric that tells you how efficient is your funnel, where is it leaking money, and how much is it costing to generate real demand for your business. That is a metric that private equity firms value. Another thing is equating more patient volume with more growth. Now, more patient volume with more growth only leads to administrative chaos. It leads to staff burnout. It means that you have retention issues, you have scheduling issues, your profitability is very low, you have weaker margins. So adding more volume without fixing your case acceptance and optimizing the rest of your funnel and rest of your process is only going to make your PPOD unstable and your EBITDA fragile. Now, a lot of dental practices react to no-shows and cancellations by doing hygiene overbookings. Now, hygiene overbookings can be chaotic if they're not strategically engineered. Hygiene naturally has passive time included in them. So, for example, if there's x-rays, if there's patient education, if there's wait time before the doctor's consult, when you plan your visits, when you plan your schedule around those gap areas, then you naturally reduce idle time and you improve same-day dentistry. Think of it like this. If you are staggering hygiene by 20 minutes, then one doctor can be able to treat in 2 different rooms without getting pulled randomly. This improves your capacity, improves your PPOD without adding more staff or more hours to your team. 5 is treating every case the same way. In a multi-location dental group, you can't treat a $300 filling and a $3,000 implant case with the same routing and scheduling protocol. It has to vary because otherwise high-value dentistry ends up waiting behind low-value dentistry, or it gets assigned to teams or structures that are not supported, that are not meant to support high-value dentistry, or it gets pushed into less effective hours, right? So case value has to impact your case routing protocols. Number 6 is only tracking top of the funnel metrics. So the biggest mistake many dental group owners make is that they only track the number of patients, number of leads, the bookings on the calendar, maybe show rates. These metrics don't determine your business growth. The real metrics to track are your case acceptance rates by the providers, your case start rates by the treatment coordinators, and completion rates over time. These are the real metrics that reflect the revenue that you're generating at the bottom of the funnel. And if you miss these metrics, you miss where the leakages are happening. Now contrast this with what high-performing dental groups are doing. This is the pattern that shows up again and again. Routing high-value cases intentionally. High-value cases such as implants, aligners, full arch, major restorative are not left to chance. They are routed into specific blocks, scheduled with the right providers, supported with the right team, protected from being displaced by low-value work. This naturally increases acceptance and drives PPOD upwards. Number 2 is pre-qualifying before the consult. Top-performing groups do not burn provider time with unqualified consults. They pre-qualify financially, clinically, and in terms of intent before the patient arrives. So by the time someone sits in the chair, they understand the category of treatment, they have context around cost, and are mentally prepared to make a decision. This alone can transform acceptance and save a lot of hours that are otherwise spent educating patients in the chair. Number 3 is training treatment coordinators consistently. In most dental groups, the problem is not that coordinators are bad. It's that training is inconsistent. The best DSOs systematically train training coordinators in case presentation, framing of insurance versus investment, financing options, patient psychology, structured follow-up. A well-trained treatment coordinator can raise acceptance by 10 to 20% without any change in the lead volume. Number 4 is aligning marketing spend with accepted cases, not with ads. In a mature platform, ads don't get the budget. Performance gets the budget. Spend follows cost per booked case, acceptance, and case start efficiency. Channels that generate accepted started cases get the fuel, whereas those that generate noise get cut, even if they look good on our cost per lead benchmark. Number 5 is tracking acceptance by provider, not just overall. This is one of the most eye-opening shifts for many organizations within the same office. Same chairs, same patients, same hours, but providers can still vary 3 to 4 times in their impact on PPOD. Without measuring acceptance by provider, that variation stays invisible. With tracking, you can support where needed, replicate what's working, and align case types with strengths. Number 6 is building a bottom-of-the-funnel follow-up system. Elite DSOs don't treat no today as the end of the story. They run structured follow-up, for example, on day 1, day 3, day 7, day 14, with additional education, financing options, reframing of value. This alone often recovers 15 to 25% of previously lost cases. The difference is simple. Most groups try to scale the top of the funnel. Elite groups scale the bottom. A lot of times, the dental group owners have this objection. They say that their teams know how to book an appointment. Well, your teams may know how to schedule patients. They pick up the phone, they book them in the calendar, but getting somebody to book an appointment in the calendar, this is a one-off event. This is not the case acquisition engine. Case acquisition engine is a repeatable process. It's the difference between your team saying we picked up the phone and booked somebody in the calendar versus how predictable is a case flow in the next 60 to 90 days. It's the difference between tasks and having a repeatable process that works on its own. Also, many times dental group owners say that we already have a lot of new patients. Now, having 300 new patients and not having that reflect on your PPOD, that says a lot about the impact of new patient volume on the actual growth of your business, right? Busy does not mean that you're also productive. Busy may mean that it's possible to have a packed schedule, your phones are ringing, your doctors are running from room to room, but if they're not leading to actual productive numbers, and if it's not reflecting on your revenue, then that kind of business is just going to lead to more chaos, and you will be running a very busy but very unprofitable practice. So busy does not mean productive. A 300 patient practice may still be losing revenue every day, and an 80 patient practice may still be more predictable, more profitable. And another common objection that dental group owners have is that their marketing agencies said that they're generating more leads. Now, the thing is that generating more leads is just one step of the funnel. What you do with those leads once they enter the system is where your revenue lives, right? That's the bottom of the funnel revenue secret. So if generating leads was enough, then every practice running a marketing campaign would be doing 8 figures. Marketing and operations, when they're aligned, they turn your leads into leverage, and that's where your EBITDA and throughput is multiplied. If they're not aligned, then those leads are just noise. They're not converting, they're just leading to chaos in your practice. Here are some benchmarks that actually matter. If your consult show rates are 70 to 85% are considered healthy. Your case acceptance rates between 55 to 75% are where most competitive DSOs operate. Consistent case starts across providers matter more than raw volume. Cost per booked case is a real economic metric, not cost per lead. And revenue per operatory, anywhere around $2,000 to $4,000 per day, sits in the zone of excellence. In the right direction, valuation almost always moves with them. Now that we have defined capacity and we've talked about engineering the flow, and we have also talked about how to make case acquisition more predictable, the next layer in the stack is your clinical throughput. That is, once the case enters the system, how well is it delivered? Your clinical throughput is the reason two doctors with the same chairs, with the same hours, can produce drastically different PPOD. That is the next layer that we're going to dive into detail. All right, so layer number 4 is the clinical throughput. This is the real multiplier. This is where production becomes repeatable, predictable, and private equity level. But the truth of the matter is that two doctors in the same chairs with the same hours can produce drastically different PPOD. The difference is not their skill. The difference is their clinical throughput. Clinical throughput is the process of turning chair time into repeatable, predictable outcome. This is not production by chance. This is engineered throughput. It's driven by procedure mix, provider variance, treatment planning habits, chair utilization, case sequencing, and how fast diagnosis turns into treatments. Most groups think they have a marketing problem when they actually have a throughput problem. This is where revenue is either unlocked or quietly lost. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions that dental group owners have is that they think that their schedule looks busy, so growth is inevitable. Here's what you need to understand. A packed calendar does not mean busy. In fact, the busy calendar can actually be hiding your biggest revenue leaks in your business. When a day is filled with a lot of low-value dentistry, your PPOD stays flat, even if your team is pushing harder and putting in the same or even more effort in it. If you want private equity level valuation, then you need to make sure that your chairs are filled with not just patients, but the right kind of patients. For example, you can have like $150 to $220 fillings. You can do $300 to $900 of crown work. You can do $4,000 to $6,000 in clear aligners. You can do $3,000 to $6,000 in implant case starts. And you can either fill your chair with 20 low-value patients, or you can have one implant case starts. Both take the same amount of chair time, but only one moves your PPOD. This is known as clinical throughput. This is the difference between a scalable DSO and the ones that are stagnant. When you stop chasing volume and start chasing value, then your PPOD becomes predictable. It's not accidental. Another common belief that dental group owners have is that they think that all of their doctors produce the same across every location. Now, this is not true. With the same kind of building, same team, same chair hours, same procedure mix, providers can vary in production anywhere between 2.5 to 4 times. Another common misconception that dental group owners have is that they think that all of their providers produce the same. Well, this is not true, because two providers in the same clinic with the same patient mix, with the same hours, with the same assistants, usually have anywhere around 2.5 to 4 times variation in their production, not because of their effort, but because of their clinical behavior. That is their diagnostic yield, their sequencing, their treatment planning, their confidence with presenting high-value cases, their chair time utilization. Your provider throughput is a metric that if you're not monitoring it closely, it becomes invisible. And when it becomes invisible, it can lead to millions in lost revenue. This is the reason why identical clinics usually have drastically different PPOD. And this is why most elite DSOs are monitoring this one metric very closely. Another common belief is that many dental group owners feel that case acceptance is only a case acceptance issue. This is because of the belief that case acceptance only happens in a consult room. But case acceptance is only one half of the story. If that acceptance is not leading to production, if that acceptance is not leading to a treatment that is being scheduled, delivered, billed, and completed, then that acceptance has no financial impact. Think of it like this. If a patient is accepting treatment but has to wait 3 weeks before the treatment can be started, then that treatment acceptance has no financial impact. High-value dental cases usually stall because there's a lack of same-day chair sequencing. Not because the patient said no, but because the system was not in place. So, for example, if a crown was accepted, but there were no prime time blocks available, or if an implant case it was accepted, but it stalled because there was no same-day chair sequencing, or clear aligner cases that usually get delayed because the diagnostics are not integrated into the daily flow. So this is where clinical throughput comes in. It's when your case acceptance and your clinical throughput are both connected that they lead to your PPOD increase, because that's when case acceptances are actually leading to production that actually leads to your PPOD and your revenue. Another common belief that dental group owners have is that they feel that if their teams could grow faster, the production would go up. Well, dentistry is not a speed sport. In dentistry, the production comes from making sure that your time is being sequenced, valued, and utilized properly. So time sequencing means that you are not wasting low-value dental work in high-value prime time blocks, because that crushes throughput. Then value means that 45 minutes of low-value dentistry usually underperforms, and 25 minutes of high-value dentistry can always outperform your low-value dental work. And utilization means that your team is intentionally utilizing each chair time, each hour, and each minute of the day. When you're focusing on speed, it only leads to chaos, team burnout, and unpredictable revenue. Getting predictable revenue and production is a matter of structuring your day and engineering it. When you start looking at clinical throughput and not just production, you realize that this is not a complicated dashboard. This is the honest scorecard that tells you why two offices are performing differently and have significantly different PPOD. Your clinical throughput depends on 5 different levers. When you work on them, your system starts performing better, producing predictable revenue. And if you ignore these, then your system starts leaking. Let's get into each of these levers one by one. Lever number 1, procedure mix. Not all procedures contribute equally to throughput. Time is fixed, value is not. A 45-minute filling might contribute a couple $100 to PPOD. That same 45 minutes used for a high-value procedure can contribute several $1,000s. This is why procedure mix quietly sets your PPOD ceiling. You can run a full day of dentistry and still cap your performance simply because too much chair time is being spent on low-value work. When higher value procedures are part of the mix, PPOD becomes much easier to stabilize. Lever 2, provider variation. This one surprises a lot of groups. You can have 2 providers working the same hours in the same rooms with the same team and still see dramatically different results. One consistently converts and sequences treatment well. The other struggles to move cases forward. That gap is not a marketing issue. It's not a staffing issue. It's variation. And until it's visible, it quietly limits throughput. This lever 3, time to chair efficiency. This lever is about how quickly a diagnosis turns into delivered treatment. When cases sit for weeks before being scheduled, throughput erodes, even if acceptance was technically high. High-performing groups pay close attention to how long it takes to move from diagnosis to chair, because delays quietly compress PPOD. One of the fastest ways to improve throughput is not more volume, it's shortening the distance between yes and the treatment. Lever 4, diagnostic yield. Every exam creates opportunity. The difference is how much of that opportunity is identified and activated. Some providers consistently uncover meaningful treatment, others don't, even with the same patient base. Hygiene plays a massive role here. Groups with strong hygiene diagnostics consistently outperform those without them. When diagnostic yield improves, your throughput improves without adding a single new patient. Lever 5, clinical sequencing. This is where the day either works for you or against you. When low-value procedures occupy prime hours, throughput suffers. When higher-value work is intentionally sequenced earlier in the day, the entire operation stabilizes. Sequencing does not rush care. It protects value. Most throughput problems don't come from bad intentions. They come from default behaviors. Here is what breaks throughput and why it happens. Unengineered scheduling. When the day runs in the order patients book, revenue becomes random. Provider by provider variation. When workflows are not aligned, consistency disappears and so does predictability. Low-value mornings. Energy is highest in the morning. When those hours are underutilized, the rest of the day pays for it. Delayed high-value treatment. Every day between acceptance and delivery increases friction. Misaligned treatment coordinators and providers. When enthusiasm meets delay, momentum collapses. High-value providers don't just rely on effort. They have systems in place. So they protect high-value time. They benchmark their providers. They shorten time to treatment. They have same-day dentistry protocols in place. They make sure that they're observing the clinical and the financial sides of operations. Because when all of those pieces are in place, then your PPOD becomes predictable and it's not just left on random luck. Here's a table that makes layer 4 click instantly. So, for example, There's a low throughput model and there's a high throughput model. There are provider hours that are the same, that are through 32 hours per week. Procedure mix value varies significantly between low and high value models. So low value model has $280 average procedure value, and the high value model has an $890 on average procedure value. Same day treatment rate for low value model is 8%, but for high value model is 32%. Diagnosis to chair time is 14 days for low throughput model, and for high throughput model is 3 days. Case acceptance is 38% for low throughput model, and for high value model is 62%. Weekly PPOD is $14,200 for low throughput model versus $39,500 for high throughput model. The annualized difference is $1.3 million per doctor for high value model compared to the low throughput model because of the variation in these matrices that we just discussed. It's the same hours, same team, but $1.3 million in annualized throughput that is significantly different. Many times dental group owners say that my providers are giving their best. And I believe they are, because providers give their best ethically, clinically, and personally. But clinical throughput is not about effort. It's about how well the system is designed to support the providers. So, for example, if your provider is giving their best shot, but their schedule is off, if high value dental cases are sitting behind low value dental work, if your hygiene ran, if your day collapsed at 2 p.m. because your hygiene ran behind, if same day dentistry protocols are not in place, if the diagnostic habits are inconsistent, then no matter how hard your provider tries, your clinical throughput will never be able to reach the kind of PPOD that you're targeting. This is not about effort. This is about having a structure in place. Another thing that dental group owners feel and say is that we don't want to push treatment, and you should absolutely not do it. And that is the complete opposite of clinical throughput. Clinical throughput is not about force. It's about precision. It's about having a system and a sequence in place that makes sure that you're respecting the doctor's time, the patient's time, and the value of the treatment. So when the patients feel that they're properly guided, properly educated, properly consulted and routed, they feel valued and they don't feel rushed. Clinical throughput is about frictionless execution. It's not about force. Now, another objection that dental group owners usually have is that they say that we already do same-day dentistry. Now, my question to you is that something that you're doing opportunistically, or are you engineering it? Are the right cases landing in the right chairs at the right time with the right treatment coordinators, with the right protocols in place to make sure that you are moving forward with same-day treatment? Because most offices do same-day treatment, but they don't engineer same-day treatments. And that is the difference between scalable PPOD and PPOD that is unpredictable. Now, if this sounds like a big change, then I want to reassure you that this is not change. This is just alignment. All you have to do is bring your providers or your treatment coordinators or your hygiene team and your sequencing models all into the same flow, all into the same operational rhythm. You don't scale by adding more. You scale by doing the same thing, but doing it the same way. When there's alignment, your growth becomes predictable without adding chaos, adding more chair hours, or adding more team members. Here are some benchmarks that private equity firms value. So for high-performing PPOD providers, the range is 2.5 to 4 times compared to their peers. Same-day treatment rates of 25 to 35% are preferred. Diagnostic yield of anywhere around $1,100 per exam is considered elite. Implant case acceptance rate of anywhere around 55 to 70% is considered good. And average treatment value per hour anywhere around $650 to $1,200 is considered strong. Private equity does not buy production, they buy throughput. So when your clinical throughput is optimized, that is, the right cases start landing with the right providers at the right time, everything else starts making sense. This is the point where your capacity, your flow, your case acquisition engine, your clinical throughput, it stops being separate conversations and starts showing up where it matters the most. That is your financials. And that is our final layer, your financial throughput. Because when your financial throughput becomes optimized, then everything else starts falling in place. Your EBITDA becomes predictable and you turn into a truly scalable multi-location group. Now let's talk about the final layer, or the financial throughput layer. This is what happens when all your operations are aligned. So what we talked about, that is the capacity, the flow, the case acquisition engine, the clinical throughput, that was all the background that was leading to this final goal, that is a financial throughput. This is what happens when your business stops behaving like a group of practices and starts behaving like a platform. Your EBITDA becomes predictable, your PPOD becomes predictable, your valuation becomes predictable. And I'm not talking about accounting or bookkeeping or profit and loss statements. I'm talking about having the financial lever, your financial throughput, that is a translation layer. That happens when your operations are aligned. This is what happens when your EBITDA is no longer dependent on one hero doctor, when all locations are behaving the same way, and when scalability is no longer an aspiration, but it actually looks like this, that's something that can be done. When your financial throughput is aligned and optimized, your valuation story becomes predictable. When it's not aligned and optimized, then no amount of great dentistry can fix your story. A common misconception that dental group owners have is that they feel that if the revenue looks good, then valuation is going to be good. Well, they don't understand that private equity firms do not value historical outputs. They want predictable EBITDA. A dental practice may be generating millions of dollars in revenue, but if the production is volatile, if their EBITDA is unpredictable, if their case flow is inconsistent, then that has an impact on their valuation story. Because revenue tells you what happened, EBITDA tells you what can be depended on, and predictability is what impacts your valuation. There's another misconception. Dental group owners feel that if they add more locations, it's going to help improve the valuation, which is not true, because private equity firms do not value valuation. They value consistency across locations. They value predictable PPOD, predictable provider outcome, predictable case flow, predictable treatment acceptance mixes, predictable PPOD, predictable clinical flow. And if there's inconsistency across locations, then scale only leads to variability, and that can negatively impact your EBITDA. So this is why smaller practices with more consistent production can demand higher multiples compared to larger groups that are inconsistent. Valuation depends on consistency and not your footprint. Many dental groups also believe that if their revenue is growing, then their EBITDA is also growing. However, in reality, many times the opposite is often true. Because when your EBITDA is growing and you don't have the systems in place to support it, then your costs are increasing. You have more staffing pressure. You're asking for overtime. You have supply usage that is increasing. You have cancellations where the flow is breaking. So EBITDA does not follow revenue. EBITDA follows a system, because without the right system in place, the revenue only means that you're pushing against the bottlenecks. This is why many top-line dental practices that are growing like top-line revenue don't have the financials to support it, because they were able to increase their demand, but they were not able to grow the systems that could support that kind of demand that was generated. One assumption is that the fastest way to growing EBITDA is to add a lot of new patients. So this is a volume assumption. Your EBITDA does not depend on your patient growth, because when you're adding more volume, you're just adding more operational costs. You're adding increased strain on your hygiene. You're adding more pressure on your scheduling and flow. You're adding to your cancellations and your idle time. Your EBITDA depends on your throughput and your case value, not on the patient volume. High-value dentistry done efficiently can have a better impact on EBITDA than doing a lot of low-value dental work. Valuation is not something that you calculate at the end of your journey. This is something that is constructed daily through operations. It reflects in your financial statements, but it is designed by having strategic operations in place. Here are some of the factors that impact your valuation negatively. Idle chair hours reduce valuation. Provider variability reduces valuation. No-shows reduce valuation. Weak acceptance reduces valuation. Unstructured scheduling reduces valuation. Delayed delivery of high-value cases reduces valuation. This is why private equity does not look at your financials. They look at your systems first. Now that we've talked about capacity, your scheduling and flow, your case acquisition system, your clinical throughput, it's time to understand how financial throughput impacts your valuation. Private equity firms are thinking about two things when they're evaluating any dental practice. They're thinking, how much is this practice worth? And number two, how safe is it to buy it? And they're assessing any dental practice based on 5 different levers. If you optimize any of these levers, your valuation improves. If you are not thinking about these levers, then your valuation gets punished. Let's get into it. Many dental groups are tracking cost per book lead, but that lead is not turning into a revenue. So you need to track cost per book case, because that tells you two things. It tells you whether the appointments that booked actually showed up, and it also reveals the ways that if your funnel is leaking revenue anywhere. Here are three ranges that I want you to keep in mind. Healthy range is anywhere around $150 to $400 per book case. Elite level is $90 to $150, and if you want a platform level visibility, then you have to make sure that it's consistent across every location. Cost per book case tells your valuation story. This is what makes your EBITDA predictable. So pillar number 2 is case acceptance rates. Many dental practices are tracking new patients, they're tracking leads, phones, revenue numbers. But the actual bridge between all of these is your case acceptance rates. That is, how soon when a consult sits in a chair does that turn into a yes, and how soon does that yes turn into a case start. When your case acceptance rates are low, you have unpredictable EBITDA. When your case acceptance rates are high, you have a predictable EBITDA, and predictable EBITDA leads to higher multiples. Here are some benchmarks for you to keep in mind. If your case acceptance is between 40 to 50%, it's considered unhealthy and you should be willing to work on it. If your case acceptance is between 55 to 65%, it's stable. And anything that is 70% or above is elite level. Your case acceptance is the bridge between your clinical engine and your financial story. Pillar number 3, or your production per operatory per day, is your North Star. This is what tells you whether everything upstream is working or not. Private equity firms are thinking, how fast is this business turning chair time into booked revenue? Some of the healthy margins are $1,200 per day is considered struggling. If you're doing $2,000 per day, that's healthy. But anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 is considered elite or platform level. Your production per operatory per day is your mirror. It's revealing because you may have 8 operatories, but financially you may only be using 4. This is not just a metric. This is a metric that you should be using in order to optimize your practice for private equity level valuation. Pillar number 4 is multi-location consistency, and this is what a lot of people get wrong. Private equity firms are not buying your strongest practice. They're buying your weakest one, because that is where the risk is. If one location is at $4,000 per day and the other one is doing $2,000 per day, then you don't have a platform. You have a patchwork. And private equity firm look at inconsistency and think that you don't have a leadership that's scalable. You don't have systems that are dependable. You don't have playbooks that are enforced. So when you're looking at valuation, your multi-location inconsistency impacts your valuation more than anything else. Because a DSO is not judged by a superstar. A DSO is judged by what happens on an average Tuesday. Now, pillar number 5 is EBITDA. That is not today's EBITDA, but the quality of your EBITDA. There are 2 types of EBITDA. EBITDA stability and EBITDA volume. Now, if your EBITDA is volatile, then it will only get you lower multiples. But if your EBITDA is less volatile, you can demand higher multiples. Private equity firms look at EBITDA and think, can this be repeated month after month? Is this dependent on one doctor, or is this personality driven? Is it dependent on seasons? When a business looks at EBITDA, they think, can this be repeated without the heroics? Your EBITDA is what determines your valuation. Private equity firms are not buying today's EBITDA. They are buying the future predictability of your EBITDA. Now, a common objection that dental groups usually have to valuation is that they say that our numbers already look very good. But the thing is that there is a difference between numbers that look good and numbers that behave good. So private equity firms are not looking at today's numbers. They're looking at future predictability of your numbers. They're asking whether your numbers are dependent on any one doctor, any one personality, any one season of the year, any one marketing funnel or channel. So if you think that your numbers look good, you have to ask yourself, can we repeat these numbers again and again every month? Are they predictable, or is this one-off? Now, objection number two is that many dental group owners say that we're already investing heavily and that should impact our valuation. Now, the thing is that private equity firms are not buying your equipment, they're buying the future predictability of your EBITDA. So, more investment in your staff does not mean a better EBITDA. More investment in marketing does not mean better case starts. More investment in your equipment does not lead to better throughput. What private equity firms are evaluating is that whether your systems are engineered to make sure that that demand is turning into revenue and how soon and predictably is it able to turn that demand into revenue. Another common belief is that dental group owners think that our EBITDA already looks very strong. But the fact of the matter is that private equity firms are looking at the historic stability and the future predictability of your EBITDA, not at your today's numbers. So if your EBITDA is volatile, even if it looks good today, it's going to impact your valuation. It has to be stable. It has to be independent of the locations, the provider, the time of the year, or the season. That is what impacts your valuation, and that is what lets you demand higher multiples. So here are some of the benchmarks that private equity firms are evaluating, and these are the signals that they care about. They are looking at practices that have a PPOD of anywhere around $2,500 per day per operatory. They have acceptance rates of 55 to 75%. The case starts per location per month are 35 to 50. The revenue per operatory is $500 to $7,000 annually. The EBITDA margins are 18 to 25%. Provider output variation is under 20% and it's spread out. The no-show rates are under 6%. These are not marketing metrics. These are valuation metrics. So now that we've looked at the 5 layers of the production engine stack, every moment you felt that you've hit a bottleneck or you've hit a plateau, or every moment that you felt that, why are we not scaling? It all comes down to these 5 layers. The layer number 1 is your capacity engine. The layer number 2 is your scheduling and flow engine. The layer number 3 is your case acceptance engine. The layer number 4 is your financial clinical throughput engine. The layer number 5 is your financial throughput engine. And the best part is that you can engineer each of these layers individually or collectively. Each of these layers can be fixable. Each of these layers can be standardized across locations. Private equity firms are not buying hope. They're buying systems. They're not buying today's EBITDA. They're buying the future predictability of EBITDA. They're not looking at your strongest office. They're looking at your weakest link. If you want to build a platform that's able to scale beyond 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 locations, then mastering these 5 layers is not optional. This is the only path. This is how Aspen, Heartland, and MV2 were able to scale to the level that they're at today.